just when you thought Alex Murdaugh's team was out of steam, this could very well be the tipping point for a new trial for Alex Murdaugh. And imagine if that were true.
Bruce Rivers, he's the criminal lawyer. Bruce Rivers, he's the criminal lawyer. Bruce Rivers, he's the criminal lawyer. And what he do? And it's gonna react to all the self-snitching.
Hi, this is Bruce Rivers. Welcome to another fun-filled episode of Criminal Lawyer Reacts. I'm Bruce Rivers, your board-certified criminal defense lawyer, here to give you the updates on the news of the day on a channel we call Criminal Lawyer Reacts that was created by our former content genius that you knew as Michael Rivers. God rest his soul. Wish he was around. Shit. But today we're reacting to the news that a court clerk is being charged in the Alex Murdaugh. I can never say it right. Murdaugh. When your name is so close to the charged crime, you're starting out in a hole. Murdaugh. Anyway, but before we get to that, this, along with all of our episodes, are brought to you by AskALawyer.com. AskALawyer.com is a very effective way and cheap way to get some good advice from an actual lawyer. $49 gets you a consultation. And here's why that's important. Let's say you just got this nagging feeling that you've got a case of one kind or another. You go to AskALawyer.com and they can tell you, you know what, leave that alone. You don't have a case. You're better off. Well, it gives you peace of mind, right? Or the opposite could happen. No, you've got a real case there, and here's what your next steps are. So go to AskALawyer.com, and if you want to do your own research, they've got an AI component that's trained on all the 50 states. I know my grandma is down in my basement right now using AskALawyer.com to see the legality of the stuff she's doing in my basement. Grandma, we're watching you. But go to AskALawyer.com. They're the same people that brought you eForms and eSign, and they're just incredibly loyal sponsors to this channel, and we love them to death. Okay, this is hot off the press. The former court clerk in South Carolina who helped with the trial attorney Alex Murdaugh, a powerful, wealthy lawyer, convicted, this is on AP, by the way, of killing his wife and son, showed sealed court documents to a reporter, then lied about it to authorities. So she's charged with showing sealed documents, which is obstruction of justice, and then lying about it, which is what? Perjury. Yes. In all, former Colleton County Clerk of Court, Becky Hill. Becky, what the fuck is wrong with you, Becky? Come on, Becky. You knew better than that. Remember, she wrote a book. Was arrested on 4 charges. She faced obstruction of justice and perjury for showing a reporter photographs that were sealed court exhibits and then lying about it, according to the court documents. Sealed exhibits are for viewing by the jury only, lawyers in the case, and court workers. So you can't do that, Becky. And you can't lie about it, Becky. She also faces 2 counts of misconduct in office for taking bonuses and promoting through her public office a book she wrote on the trial, according to the warrants. So she got a warrant. 4 counts. Hill, 57, was released on bail after court appearances in Colleton County and Richland County. Her lawyers didn't immediately respond to messages seeking comment. She lives here. She turned herself in. We found out about these charges last night. Hill's attorney, Will Lewis, said during her appearance in Colleton County Court. Here's the thing. You think you're above everything, but guess what we are? We're all human, right? If it weren't for human frailty and bad decisions, I wouldn't have a fucking job, honestly. And so what did Becky Hill do? She took advantage of her position as a court clerk. And she tried to make money off it. And she did. But guess what? Now you're going to go to fucking jail, which you did. And you had to bail out, which you did. You dumb shit. Dumb decisions. Hill was charged with, she was in charge of taking care of the jury, overseeing exhibits, and helping the judge during the Murdaugh 6-week trial in 2023 when he was convicted of killing his wife and younger son. The case involved power, danger, money, and privilege, and an attorney whose family had lorded over a small South Carolina county for nearly a century. Lorded over. Nice wording. So Murdaugh's appealing his conviction and his sentence. He got life without parole. In part, he's accusing Hill of trying to influence the jurors to vote guilty, and his appeal was based on the what did she say to him? She said something about him not being believable on the stand to the jury. That's what she's accused of. Now, she's already testified at a hearing, post-conviction hearing, where she said, I didn't say anything like that. I didn't do anything like that. This, on the other hand, is going to open a whole fucking can of worms. If she's releasing this to a reporter and then accused of lying about it, and then now she's being on the hook, so you can guarantee that this is going to create another post-conviction motion by the defense. But even if that's true, what else did he do? He got like fucking 99 years or something like that, some crazy amount of time for all the people that he fucked over in his personal injury practice. You know, we had a guy here in Minnesota, worked for a very big law firm, really big law firm, stole about $9 million from a bunch of clients. Basically what he would do is this. Mr. Johnson, good news. I've settled your case for $100,000. And we're going to get the check in and we'll take care of you. Well, he actually settled it for $300,000. So he'd pocket $200,000, take a third of the $100,000, and then the guy winds up with like $66,000. And Dave would get, his name is Dave. Dave would take home like $230,000. You know, and he did that over and over and over and over again. And he would tell people not to show the client the check, and it wound up catching up to him. And what was he doing? He had two households. He had a broad in one state and another broad in another state, and they didn't know about each other, and he was trying to, juggle all this shit. All for what? All for, because he couldn't satisfy the wiener with one woman. That's really what it comes down to. And what was Alex Murdaugh's problem? Drugs. Drugs and dishonesty. Honesty is always the best policy, to be honest with you. And one woman is always the best policy. It's just this. Fuck. I mean, how many guys get in trouble? You could be the guy that whores around. Sure, go ahead and do that. But be honest about it. And then the way nobody's hurting, and everybody's expectations. But guess what? If you go whore around, the woman always wants to get married, right? Always. And so she's going to pressure you to do that. Just be a one-woman guy, But, and just be honest. This woman, she probably wouldn't have been in as much trouble if she would have just copped to it. But perjury is a fucking felony. And I'm not sure the statute in South Carolina for the obstruction. Obstruction usually can be a felony, and I would assume that it is. And using your position is an aggravating factor. I don't know why they say this is a kind of case. And this bothers me when prosecutors do this. They charge a case out by warrant, and then the person has to turn themselves in. Then they make an appearance on the bail calendar. You got to bail yourself out, whatever. They could have easily charged us out by summons. But she had to turn herself in. And so now she's on the jail calendar. You can see that she's in this room with a bench and all the people that are in custody. And she's in her street clothes because she turned herself in. How embarrassing for her now to go back into court as a defendant after making these mistakes.
Okay, good morning, everyone. I'm Judge Fishburne. I'm going to conduct the bond hearing today. I want to welcome everyone. We have Agent.
All for what? Look at, this is just humiliating, and all because she was just fucking greedy and caught up in that moment. Some people just aren't meant to have their hand in the till.
Zefsky, Agent Fitzgerald, Attorney Mr. Lewis, and the press. So welcome, everyone. Mrs. Hill, will you please state your full name for the record?
Mary Rebecca Hill.
Thank you. Do we have the
Never trust anybody but that goes by their middle name.
Okay, I see them. They're back there. I just want to make sure that the agents were there. All right. I'm going to go through the rights and responsibilities. I'll advise you some information, and then at the end we'll hear from the state and we'll hear from your attorney. Okay?
When you have your arraignment, which is what this is, there's two things that happen. They read you the complaint on the record if you want to. Usually you waive the reading of a complaint. And then they determine conditions of release, like bail.
All right. Before I set your bond, I need to advise you some information and make you aware of your rights. You've been charged with 2 counts of misconduct in office and obstructing justice. These penalties for these three, they're common law penalties, so it's at the judge's discretion. However, I can tell you that typically the common law crimes carry possible penalties of 0 to 10 years. Your court date is scheduled for July 18th, 2025.
So that would be a felony. Anything over a year and a day is a felony.
At 9 o'clock at the courthouse at 101 Hampton Street. And do you understand the charges and penalty?
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay. And I assume you're familiar with that location. So because...
Gee, how do you know that location? Did you used to work there?
This is a general sessions offense. You have a right to a preliminary hearing. This is a hearing that will determine if the prosecution has enough evidence to move forward with the trial. If you wish to have a preliminary hearing, you must request it within 10 days. And I'm going to send that paperwork with your packet for the preliminary hearing. If you'd like to have that, you can go ahead and sign that now, and then we'll get that scheduled.
A preliminary hearing is where the state has to prove probable cause. They have to show probable cause, and they do that by presenting a witness, usually an officer that's involved, and they put on some evidence. And the benefit for that is that you get kind of a crack at the case a little bit. You get to cross-examine the officer in charge. A lot of times you waive it because, usually there's overwhelming evidence of probable cause. Probable cause is not a high standard at all. It's just slightly more true than not true.
Before you can plead guilty or not guilty or proceed to trial, you need to know you have a right to an attorney. And I see that you have a private attorney here. And am I correct? It's Will Lewis?
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay, thank you. You need to know if you were an attorney at any point, you can apply for a public defender. I'm assuming you want to stick with Mr. Lewis at this point.
Sure.
Okay, what I will do, I will send the application in your packet for public defender in case things don't work out and you change your mind. So you will have that application. Okay? All right. Would you please give me a good telephone number? And you know what? I think with the press, we're live streaming. I'm going to get that after so we don't have that on the live stream. Okay? And I'll check with your address with that as well. You do need to know you keep your address and phone number updated with the court. You're required to notify the court if you've had any change of address until the completion of the case. Not receiving the notification due to the wrong address will not be an excuse for not attending court, and a bench warrant could be issued for your arrest and your bond revoked. You have a right to request a jury trial, and a jury trial would be judged by a jury of your peers as opposed to a bench trial with a judge. You have a
Reading the rights. I mean, that happens in every case.
right to be present at your trial, and you need to be aware the trial will proceed in your absence should you fail to attend. In a general sessions court, if you do not appear, you can be fined an additional $5,000 and 5 years in jail. If your charges are dismissed, or if you're found not guilty, if they're not crossed, you may request to have your record expunged, which means it'll be taken off your record like nothing has ever happened.
Now, if you remember the Alex Murdaugh trial, it was a big trial. It was, he was a big hitter in a small town, and he was like fourth generation for the law firm. Great grandfather or somebody started it way back when, like 100 years ago, and then he took that law firm and turned it into shit. And then, not only did he rip people off, he was convicted of murdering his wife and son, blowing them away. And while that was going on, his son took a little Snapchat video where Alex Murdaugh was heard on the Snapchat, but he was saying he was in another, was sleeping in the house at the time. I don't know what to make of that, to be honest with you, because to me it seemed like he couldn't have done this by himself, but there was no other perpetrator that I could see.
Do you fully understand your rights and responsibilities I've gone over this morning?
Yes.
Okay. At this time,
This is Alex Murdaugh with Swedlund. Oh, Your Honor, we have no recommendation as far as bond.
Okay, all right, thank you. And then Counselor, would you like to address the
Yes, Your
court at
Honor.
this
Will
time?
Lewis, and may it please the court, and I apologize for sitting down and not standing, but speaking to the court is the only way I can get in your screen.
The cameras are a little messed up, I know. Thank you.
The position that they've taken in under 17 or 1510, we're entitled to recognizance bond on our own recognizance absent.
There's no sense in having her post any bail. I mean, and that's why the warrant baffles me a little bit. She should have been charged by summons. But she's in jail right now. She's trying to get out. And so
Showing that she's a danger to the community or risk of flight. She lives here. She turned herself in. We found out about these charges last night. We're here right now. So we'd be asked that she's released on her own recognizance.
All right. All right. Ms. Hill, are you currently on probation, parole, or out on bond now?
No, ma'am.
Okay. And then how long have you lived at your address?
25 years.
I'm not going to bore you with the rest of that. She gets released without any bond, and there's no reason that she had to do this, but she was swept up in the fame of it all. She had to get her little treasure that she got. I don't know if she got paid to show these pictures to somebody, to the media or whatever she did. It sounds like she did. And then, when you have a position of trust, you're a court clerk, I'm a lawyer, Alex Murdaugh was a lawyer. You're in a position of trust. You handle other people's money. You handle other people's information. You handle private information. The people have trusted you with that information to keep it secret because it was under seal. Why was it under seal? It was under seal so that it's only viewed really by the jury and to ensure that the defendant and the state get a fair trial. But instead, she releases these photos and everything to the media, ostensibly to the same people that helped her get a book deal. And is she going to do any time? In all likelihood, not. She might get 30 days or something like that, or she might even get a deferred sentence. But she may not either because, that position of public trust is an aggravating factor. They're supposed to be held to a higher standard. It just says a lot about somebody's character. I've never heard of that ever happening in almost 30 years of practice. Never heard of a court clerk going off the rails. How about the George Floyd trial? So much shit happened here during the George Floyd trial. And, they moved for a change of venue, blah, blah, blah. It was such a national shit show. And that was televised live, just like the Murdaugh trial was. And I've never seen a clerk do anything like that. This has got to be a day of infamy for her. It's just for her to sit here and appear before a judge that I'm sure she knows, and that and to go through lockup, and just to be one of the people that you've probably ridiculed in the past. Oh, look at that person! Look at the people that go through the court system are people. She's a person too. She made a bad choice, and now she's got to suffer the consequences. So just remember that next time you are tempted, whether you're in charge of a till at a retail location, or whether you're at a bank, or whether you're, caring for, like you're a PCA, caring for somebody in their home. They've got a Rolex watch sitting right there. You could take it easily. Guess what? What happens in the dark comes to the light. And if it weren't for people like this and other people making dumb decisions, like I said, I wouldn't have a job. But I just thought this was interesting because this adds fuel to the fire. And guess what this does? This, just when you thought Alex Murdaugh's team was out of steam, this gives them a lot of steam. This could very well be the tipping point for a new trial for Alex Murdaugh. And imagine if that were true. I think I 100% think that because of this, the stuff that was alleged about the jury could be true, and out of abundance of caution, he should get a new trial. Now, I don't like Alex Murdaugh. I don't like the shit he did to all his clients, and I certainly don't like what he did to his wife and son, for that matter. Jesus Christ! But I also don't like the fact that the process is what we're dealing with here, due process, and that's affected when you have somebody that's not being the honorable person they're supposed to be in a position of trust. All right. So that's what we have about the Alex Murdaugh. We'll keep following this. And if he gets a new trial because of this, you heard it here second or third. I don't know about first. But we'll see you next time here on Criminal Lawyer Reacts. Make sure you subscribe. Follow us on Instagram. Follow us on Twitter. Sign up for Patreon. You do get a free hat if you are a paid member. And make sure that you love yours like I love mine. See you next time here on Criminal Lawyer Reacts.
Bruce Rivers just broke down your case. He know all the charges that you about to face. You ain't coming home till 2058. That self-snitching gon' get you put away.